My father was the scariest man I ever knew. My first memory is desperately trying to muffle my brother's cries. My dad is towering over us, yelling that we should shut the fuck up. Crying always made Dad angry. Everything did, really. The old fuck died years ago, but he stays a part of me. I'm an angry girl, not easy to love. I've never had a boyfriend. I never even had friends, really, except for my little brother. He is the functional one. Doesn't even remember half the stuff Dad did to us. Just kind of blocked it out, I guess. He's able to live. He has tons of friends. He even managed to fall in love, and they had a baby girl. I always wanted kids. I never got the chance. The jealousy was eating me up, but I wasn't really angry at my brother. I understood why everyone preferred him over me. And he is the only one who ever loved me. That is, of course, until the night he asked me to babysit his kid. I still remember his screams, the terror in his eyes, the blood on the crib, him trying to get it off, to fix his only daughter, to make her breathe again. Have you ever seen someone giving CPR to a baby? It didn't work. I just stood by and watched. Everything. The trial was a blur. I barely heard my sentence. Even now, the only thing I can focus on are my brother's letters. He hates me for killing his baby girl, but he has kept in touch. After all, there was a time where we were the only good thing in each other's lives. He knows that I saved him back then. A bond like that doesn't break. And so he keeps writing. I hold on to these letters. Every word about him recovering, him living, him thriving again, has been a tiny spark. A confirmation that I made the right call. That is until I saw what he wrote yesterday. I'm going to be a dad again. I put the letter down quickly. I was feeling sick. My father was the scariest man I ever knew. Until I arrived at my brother's house that fateful evening and saw him standing over the crib, covered in blood. "Shut up," he whispered. "Shut up. Shut up. Shut the fuck up." I cleaned him up. He just kept staring into the distance, murmuring, and by the time I was done, he had just blocked it out. So I took the blame. I took the sentence. He was my baby brother, and he had a life to live. He's a good man. He's a kind man. One moment was all it took, and he does not even remember it. But I am sure when his next child cries, my father will awaken once more. He's not the man I married. In the quiet solitude of their suburban home, Kim felt an uneasy presence lurking just outside the kitchen window. She glanced. A figure standing in the street stared back, face obscured by darkness. After wiping her eyes, the figure disappeared. She confided in her husband James, but he dismissed her concerns. "Well, have you been taking your medication?" As the days passed, she noticed James growing distant, taking on extra hours at work to support their children's private school tuition, despite him making more than enough to clear the bills. Kim's mind twisted with suspicion, leading her to believe James was seeing another woman. The emotional distance between them only deepened, and she couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something was terribly wrong. Seeking solace, she shared her concerns with her closest friend, who tried to soothe her fears about the figure and attributing James's behavior to work-related stress. Yet the unsettling figure outside the window persisted, making her doubt her friend's reassurances. One afternoon, Kim and the kids returned from their daily walk, only to find James home early, an unusual surprise. He enveloped them in warm hugs and kisses, as if they had been apart for years. His newfound attentiveness startled Kim, who couldn't believe he was planning to cook dinner, a task he had never undertaken in their entire marriage. As they gathered around the dinner table, Kim watched in awe as James displayed extraordinary culinary skills. It was as if he had a hidden talent that had remained concealed until now. The family chatted joyfully about their day and the pleasant weather during the walk. Kim's heart swelled with a mix of happiness and confusion, wondering what had brought about this sudden transformation in her husband. Excitement filled the air as the kids spoke about their upcoming talent show. Kim reminded James of the event, causing him to reply with a heartfelt promise to take the day off, something he wouldn't miss for the world. The surprise made Kim audibly gasp, hardly believing the change in her husband's demeanor. Eager for some alone time with this newly attentive James, Kim initiated the children's bedtime routine earlier than usual. But just as they were about to escape to their bedroom, she remembered the kids' school uniforms still in the wash. Reluctantly, she descended the creaky wooden basement steps. As Kim moved the laundry to the dryer, a putrid stench permeated the air, filling her lungs with dread. She followed the scent, her heart pounding louder with each step. Finally, she stood before the crawlspace door and hesitated before opening it. The sight that greeted her was beyond her worst nightmares. Her husband's lifeless body, dressed in the same clothes he wore for work this morning. Kim dropped to her knees, sobbing, remembering the violent act she had done. Just as her reality started to shatter, their son called down to her asking, "What's for dinner tonight?" My roommate used to wear diapers, and now I know why. I moved in with Victor because of his reserved nature. He had no intention of becoming friends with me, and that was fine. I hate to say it, but Victor was not the kind of guy to attract ladies. He had a face that resembled a veggie pizza. A mishmash of pimples and different colored spots covered his face. Whenever he locked eyes with me, I could sense a sadness behind his eyes. So, on the Friday night, Victor stepped through the front door with a woman named Angela, clearly a p***. My smile lit up the room, and he returned my smile with such a wide grin. As I sat in the living room on my laptop, I began to hear moans coming from Victor's room. I retreated to my bedroom and turned up the music. The following evening is when things got weird. Victor walked in with a box of diapers. "Diapers? Victor, do you have a kid I don't know about?" I asked jokingly. "Mike, they are actually for me. I have a condition," he responded. "Oh yeah, of course. No worries. I understand. I didn't mean to intrude. It just caught me off guard." 2 hours later, Victor walked into the kitchen and he smelled like shit. The smell continued to get worse day after day. Victor was clearly soiling himself. The apartment felt like a giant toilet that wouldn't flush. I confronted Victor one night when we ran into each other cooking dinner. "Hey man, I'm not sure if you have noticed, but the smell has been pretty bad in here." "I'm sorry, Mike. I told you I have a condition." I know, but don't take this personally, but do you dispose of the diapers in like a trash bag and take them outside to the dumpster?" "Of course, Mike. What do you think I've been doing?" I don't know." I couldn't stand it any longer. The following Saturday, while Victor was at the grocery store, I poked my head into his room. It smelled like rotting sewage. His sheets grabbed my attention. There was a noticeable patch of dried blood spots. But it was his closet that really drew me in. The horrendous odor seemed to be coming from behind his closet doors. I turned the knob. "Holy fuck!" I shouted. Inside Victor's closet, covered by piles and piles of Victor's dirty diapers, Angela's bloody corpse. I stumbled backwards and vomited. I ran back into the living room, distraught and shaking. I pulled out my cell and started to dial the police when I heard the sound of Victor's key turning in the front door. When the door opened, I charged at him, knocking him to the ground. I ran outside and got hold of the authorities. Victor was sitting inside and surrendered without confrontation when the police arrived. When they asked him why he killed Angela, his response was, "She didn't like the way I looked." "She's dead. My girlfriend's dead. I killed her. There are 4 other bodies in my basement." I met her for the first time at my company office. She worked in a different department. She was the most beautiful girl I've ever seen. Her green, sparkly eyes, long, flowing blonde hair. Everything about her was perfect. I knew right then and there that I had to be with her. After a department meeting, I strode up to her and asked her to have dinner with me that night. She looked at me and told me that she didn't even know who I was. It took a few more tries, but I eventually got her. The day she invited me to move in was probably the happiest day of my life. The feeling of sleeping with her at my side is irreplaceable. The trouble started when I walked into our bedroom and vomited. She screamed and went to get me some medicine from the nearest open pharmacy. I shouted at her not to. It was nearing 11 p.m. It was way too late to go out. Too late. She was in the car, searching for an open pharmacy. I warned her, but she wouldn't listen. When she was jumped by a gang outside, I wasn't there. When they dragged her into a nearby alley, I wasn't there. When they beat her and took her money and clothes, I wasn't there. I killed her because I wasn't there for her. The other 4 bodies in my basement, the gang that took her. I took out my anger on them. The most perfect woman I ever knew, their hands. It's time for me to move on. I have to keep a more careful watch on my next girlfriend. Next time I'm not coming out of the attic for anything. It's true what they say about being in a coma. You hear everything. From what I can gather, I had a traumatic brain injury after I was hit on my motorcycle. Apparently, it was my 41st day in this state. The doctor said my prognosis is unclear as of now. My family visits me every day. My father, sister, and mother would arrive sometime in the early morning, at least I think. They would seem to leave sometime late at night. It was comforting to know I had some support through all of this. It was now day 48, the doctor told my father. Fear and dread crept into my body when he informed him that it might be time to consider withdrawing life-sustaining treatment. Please, no, I'm not ready. Just give me more time. Absolutely not, my father responded. A wave of relief came over me. Harry, I heard my mother say, let's think about it for a second before we make any decisions. You don't know what he would want. Think about what life would look like for him even if he did recover. We should talk about this. He retaliated. This conversation is done. A couple more weeks passed. The doctor brought it up about 4 more times. Every time my father would adamantly refuse. I started to get convinced the doctor wanted me to die. And then it started happening. I noticed strange things occurring at night. At first, I started feeling really hungry. I could feel the muscles withering away. That's when I realized my feeding tube was getting turned off. Next thing I noticed was that I felt increasingly sleepier each day. I had to fight to stay awake. My sedation was getting turned up. And then I started feeling really short of breath, soon realizing that my oxygen level was getting turned down. Like I said, I swear that doctor was trying to kill me. Day 75. The doctor again asked my father to consider. Do not bring this up again, he angrily responded. It was nighttime. Everyone had left for the day, or so I had thought. I heard my door open, the sound of footsteps getting closer to my bed. I recognized my mother's voice. I cannot wait any longer. She removed the oxygen out of my nose. I could feel myself starting to gasp for air. She whispered in my ear. I need you to know some things. I've been begging that doctor to convince your father to finally put an end to this. I want you to die. You are not my son. You are the product of that piece of shit side war 20 years ago. I've never loved you. I can't even stand to look at you. This has been the ultimate blessing. Good night, sweetie. The breaths became shorter, and my head got lighter. I heard her walk out of the room as I faded out of consciousness.